What is up, guys? Welcome to another episode of Pearl Daily here on the Audacity Network. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Today, I actually thought I would start the show with my freestyling. But today it's going to be a little different because I want to see if I can do it with like a pop beat on YouTube, but I don't know if it's going to work. But if you're here, sit back, relax. I know a lot of you guys are the middle Americans, the truckers, the plumbers, the average Americans in this country. And I know you guys work hard for your money, so I appreciate you hanging out with me here. But, sit back, relax, pop a beer. I'm drinking water, but it's only because I'm trying to not be fat. That's it. If I was you, I would drink a beer. Okay, so we're going to do a Justin Bieber type beat. And then you guys can put a word in the chat. And I will create a song on... Oh, no, I can't do this. I'm so dumb. I can't do this because copyright free, I think I have to do. Because it can't be free. Okay, this one's free. And I'm going to see if this works. And you tell me if it's delayed or not. Okay, let me put this tab back here. Share screen. Okay, it says free. Okay. So let me get your chat over here so I can see it. All right. Put a word in the chat. They were talking about the Daily Wire guy, and I know that it's much to our surprise that they're kind of working for the other side. Daily Wire guy. 24 says in the chat, I don't mean to be bored. I'm a 27 straight male that. Where do you find decent women? Okay, I'll talk about where you can find decent women.
The contrabands.
They don't exist in this country. They ain't good. We just want the money. And I know that we're acting kind of funny. But the problem is this working? Can you hear the beat? This gets kicked off. My choice to do this. Okay. I said 1, 2, 3. Was it meant to be under the old oak tree? And I know I'm wrong. All right, well, that's my beginning. Pearl, I can teach you how to sing from your diaphragm. Thank you so much, David. Thank you so much. Thank you, I appreciate it. Thank you. It's like, do you know what I mean? It's like when I'm singing, is that really what I want to hear? Is that really what I want? When I'm spitballing, I'm jamming, and he's like, "Well, I could teach you how to sing." I'm like, "Well, now's not the time, David. Now is not the time." Okay. Okay, before we get into today's topic, I kind of thought I'd do a fun show in the beginning that's a little bit off the dome. And I just want to talk about life lessons. Now, I'm approaching 30. I'm getting old. I'm walling, I'm hitting that wall. And so when you get old in life, things get taken from you. That's just part of life. But you only learn that when you start losing stuff. You learn that life's this game of inches, and so is football. Okay, that's a movie. That's a movie. I randomly, oh no, do I have something in my teeth? Hold on. I gotta, I'm going to share a screen and fix this. We're going to share this screen And I'm going to have to get this out of my teeth. I'm so sorry, fellas. I'm so sorry. This is not my best work. Let me make this full. Let me make this full while I figure this out. Okay. If you guys are wondering, I do have music on Spotify. I have like 4 songs, so it's gone now, I think. I think I got it. All right, it's so embarrassing. This is so embarrassing. It's like, okay, so I'm getting old now. So I've actually learned some life lessons in the last few years. And I would say the last like 3-4 years of my life, I've really grown up a lot. And I think the people that have watched me a long time, they can kind of see that. Like, I think as an adult, I was sort of delayed as a person. And part of that reason was because my parents did pay for a good amount of stuff in my early 20s. I lived at home for a while, and I think I was just kind of sheltered from the real world. And this was a lot of criticism in my early like content, right? They're like, what does she know? She's just some rich kid. And they were kind of right. There's a lot I didn't know back then. And a lot of life lessons I really did learn now. I'll tell you what. And I think there's mental models that really helped me in life. And there's also things that I wasted my time on. So I'd really just like to share it with you guys. You can take it or leave it. And one mental model I sort of learned from my father when I was younger, but now I put it into practice a lot more. So one thing my father taught me was he said to never, ever burn a bridge. And when I was younger, I did not always listen to this. I would say in general, I'm not really one to get into a lot of arguments with people. I know, shocking doing what I do, but I think if you've watched me a while, you see my nature is really not, it might be debating, but I'm not really a yeller. I'm not really argumentative. But there are times when I have burned a bridge, and I'll actually tell the story. So when I first went on Fresh and Fit when I was younger, I think I was like 23 or 24. And I got into a disagreement with Myron at the time. It was kind of a long story. I brought somebody that I thought was approved by like someone on his staff approved it, but Myron didn't directly approve it. So it was like a miscommunication. And after the show, he was kind of stressed and he just completely crashed out on me a little bit. Right. But after I decided that I was going to take this to the internet, I told this story on the internet. And instead of really going in good faith and saying, you know what, Myron didn't know, he was in a tough situation, and giving him, the benefit of the doubt, I got mad and I crashed out. And I talked about it on the internet. And the longer I was in the industry, the more I really saw that Myron was actually a good guy. And he was actually one of the few people that was like being honest in this industry. And I felt really guilty that I like put that on the internet. And I said some not so nice things about him. And it took me so long to rebuild. We're actually cool now, but it took me so long to rebuild that bridge. Rightfully so, right? I went and like talk crap on the internet about him. But it actually was a real life example of my dad's lesson to me when I was younger. He always told me to never burn a bridge because you just never know where people are going to be. And you never want to completely like burn that bridge. And that was just an example where I learned that lesson. And the challenge is I'm actually not for telling. Sometimes you have to learn lessons the hard way in life. I know a lot of people want to like not make mistakes. And that's actually going to go into my next thing that I learned. As women do, yeah, we'll learn the hard way. But just being honest, this lesson in life, and this has been true. My dad told me a story of this person that screwed him over, and I'm not going to put a dollar amount on the amount of money this person, I guess, stole from him or took from him, whatever. But it was a lot. I'll say this. My dad worked with somebody that completely screwed him over. And he said that in that case, he did not scream, he did not yell, he didn't crash out. He just moved on. And this person ends up, my dad tells me the story of this person comes back and ends up helping him when he was in a situation where we almost lost our house. He made like a bad financial decision. At the time, it was like 2007, bought some real estate crap, our life savings was in that. And this person that completely screwed him over in the past comes back and actually decides to be a good person. A lot of times people know they screw you over. You don't have to, people feel, there are shitty people in the world that just don't feel guilt. But eventually, if you just are good to people and nice to them, they do come back around, in all honesty. If you just, do the high road, whatever. And that's like what I learned is you really shouldn't burn bridges. Because eventually there's just not much upside. So the next lesson, and this is another lesson I learned in life. As women, we are prone to getting very frustrated and angry. Men are prone, their mindset is just to solve problems. And what I've learned is that if you ever are upset about something, you really have to ask yourself why you're upset. And usually when you're upset, it's because you're frustrated, you don't know how to do something. And one thing my dad taught me is to always just ask yourself, what is the next step? What is whatever you're mad about, what is the next step? You're fighting with your wife. Okay, what's the next step? Are you going to divorce her? No. Are you going to do therapy? No. What is the next step? I think that's why men are so frustrated with women is a lot of times it's very difficult to find those next steps. There's a lot of channels that do have next steps for you that are very analytical and step-by-step of what you do. You're mad because something's not working. Okay, if you don't know how to do it, who does know how to do it? And it just, when you think about something in terms of what is the next step, it makes you very analytical and less emotional. As women, we are prone to getting emotional. So I would say as women, like that is a way that mental model really helps me. If I get frustrated at work, my question is, well, what is the next step? And when I break things down and I have a list of step 1, do this, step 2, do this, it takes the emotion out of it, The next thing that I learned in life, and I'll stop boring you guys unless you really like these, but I'll get to the topic. But, I'm starting to feel a little sentimental. You guys have been here for like 5 years. You've seen me grow up on the internet. The next thing I learned in life is there are some causes that are just not worth getting on. A lot of people want to get you on their cause, and they're going to waste your time and your money. I see a lot of conservatives expect nothing to change. And if it does, be happy with it. When I was in my early 20s, I really thought that the conservatives were going to win the culture war. And I've only seen them lose. I've only seen it get worse. And, just for your mental sanity, I would say to just expect nothing to get better. And it really does something with your mindset, because when you don't expect the world to change, you figure out how to navigate it. Okay, your options for wives are whores. Well, where can we find the least hoary women? Okay, they'd be living in these areas, they'd be doing these things, and you start to do a process of elimination. But if you expect things to get better, you're just going to be waiting on hope the rest of your life. You're just going to be like waiting for things to change. I got to operate in the current market. And a lot of people, like, imagine, and my dad was a businessman, right? So imagine a business guy is making a decision. He's not going to make a decision based on what might happen in the future. He's going to make a decision based on what we have now, not the history from 100 years ago. And that's really, as a person, like, there's no point in getting involved in a lot of movements because most won't change. Imagine if you were in the 70s fighting against abortion. You would be going nuts, if you actually expected it to change. We can hope and we can try our best, but I always go in with the expectation that nothing's going to change. Everything's going to stay the same now. Anyways, when I was younger, I did not. Okay, so those are 3 lessons. If you guys like that segment, let me know, and I will do it again. Maybe I've thought about making a couple. Oh, the other thing is on expenses. You always have to know what's going out and why. And it's better to learn or at least observe how to do everything yourself so you don't get taken advantage of. Okay, Daily Wire. Oh, hold on. What is it called? Oh, no, Friendly Fire.
You will.
We're at like 30 minutes in, I want to say. Okay. I'm going to pull this up. Okay.
Steve Vance's point is, no, I'm not going to play that game with you. I'm not going to give you what you want. Instead, I'm going to redirect the conversation back to the thing that you're trying to distract us from. And I think that that's exactly the right move. I think there's some disagreement about that, though. There's more to be said about it. But I'm going to go first to the guy who I think is most likely to agree with me, and that is Michael. Michael.
Well, you're right, Matt. I totally agree.
Was it the swastika on his forehead?
Yes. Hey, listen, we're Italian, and Mussolini was a complex figure. My only take on this that probably has not been said elsewhere is even the fact that we're talking about the ideology of the far right and comparing the far right to the far left, and whether or not people like Hitler or whatever, is actually kind of missing
of that comment.
Back. Let me go a little further back.
Just want to congratulate you for surviving with Michael Knowles.
Behind this is to overturn Western civilization.
Bin Laden was getting very antsy.
10th anniversary, guys. Big fans. Love what you guys have been up to, and congratulations on all your success. Look forward to seeing more from all of your top talent, all the amazing content you've produced, and wish you the best of luck for the next 10 years.
10 years? It's your 10-year anniversary? Where did the time go? I looked up online what you get somebody for their...
Yeah, and 10-year anniversary. I think that's why I have a particular hatred in my heart for the Daily Wire, is because when I was an early adopter, they just sold me this dream of stuff that was never going to happen. And I don't like being lied to. I didn't like that feeling,
10-year anniversary, and the modern...
I don't hate them, but I just,
modern gift is diamonds, so that's out. The more traditional gift is either tin or aluminum. So I'm between sending you a pack of Altoids or a Dr. Fauci vaccine, which is laden with aluminum. Just ask RFKJ. I think given the options, you're getting yourself a pack of Altoids. And what I mean by sending it is, I love you. Here's to 10 more.
Here's to 10 years of standing firm, to 10 years of pushing boundaries, to 10 years of restoring integrity in media.
Okay. All right, we're going to get...
Now you've made it. Congratulations. I can't wait to see what you do in the next decade.
Oh, that was nice. Okay.
That was nice. Has anybody ever wanted to sneak up in back of Tim and just take that hat off and see if his brain is just naked under there?
One of my favorite memories, honestly, like first 10 years of Daily Wire, was Jeremy Boring's 40th birthday party, where I got Ted Cruz to come to Jeremy's 40th birthday party. And then Ted proceeded.
Conversation of some young Republicans.
Here we go.
And the young Republicans are not elected officials. They're not anyone that anyone's even heard of for the most part. There's one person in the group chat, apparently, who works in the Trump administration, who is not recorded having said anything. So he's...
Let me go back to, hold on.
Serious? Matt, you talk about something serious.
All right, here we go. I'm so sorry, guys. Now we're ready.
Far too much friendly small talk so far in this friendly fire. We got a lot of the friendly, but not the fire.
Not a lot of fire.
Yeah. So okay. So let's get into. I've been strictly instructed that the intros to these topics are supposed to be 2 minutes, but my primary and most reliable strategy in any debate is just to talk and not let anyone else. Filibuster is my only. It's my only move. Politico. Let's talk about Politico. This is one of the big stories happening right now. And for anyone who's not familiar, Politico published a couple days ago this big hit piece revealing the private group chat conversation of some young Republicans. And the young Republicans are not elected officials. They're not anyone that anyone's even heard of for the most part. There's one person in the group chat, apparently, who works in the Trump administration, who is not recorded having said anything. So he was in it, but as far as we know, he didn't say anything, quote unquote, offensive. But there were other comments made in the group chat, as Politico reveals, that were a lot of edgy jokes and a lot of offensive language that's being used in this group chat. And most of it, as Politico finally admits in the article, if you read all 57 paragraphs of it, they'll finally admit that, yeah, most of this is supposed to be a joke. Although they don't, of course, put that in the headline. And the title of the article has the quote, "I love Hitler." And when you look at the context of that comment in the group chat, it's very obvious that it is a joke. It's sarcasm. Very much in line with the kind of sarcasm Republicans use all the time about, yeah, I'm real far right. I guess I love Hitler. Along the lines of me having theocratic fascist in my Twitter bio, which isn't entirely a joke, but it's mostly a joke. So this is this kind of breaks down a few different ways. And for me, the story here is not the group chat, because these are private messages between people that no one knows. These are not relevant people. And the only reason why the media is showing us this, the only reason why they're doing this is obviously it's a political hit. And in particular, they're trying to distract from the fact that the left has spent the last month, I mean, really much longer than that, but especially the last month, openly celebrating political violence. And now we have a attorney general candidate, who's probably going to be the next attorney general of Virginia, who was in his own messages saying, not as a joke, that he wants his political opponents to die and even their children to die. And he was very specific that he was not joking about it. And so the left is looking to distract from that. And their way of doing it is by somehow obtaining these messages and putting them out to distract us. And, some Republicans.
So we're at an interesting point in society because it's very hard to function socially without having technology. I know there's this conservative right-wing thing where they just say, unplug, move to the country, whatever. They're not even doing that. Nobody wants to do that. Everybody likes the cities. Nobody wants to live in the middle of nowhere. Okay. It's not really feasible nowadays. Like, you're not really going to have a social life if you're out in the country. It's not important to some people, right? But young people, it is, I would say. You can't really date in the country, not the same way you can in the city. Or at least the suburbs of a big city. So anyways, Matt, I think that private conversations should be off limits to leak because you never really know the context of it. I wonder if there will ever be laws about leaking private conversations. I wonder if that is actually a law.
Republicans have been very quick to offer their denunciations, to say how offended they are, how horrible these messages are, that everybody involved should be fired, that they should never be allowed in politics again. I think that response is foolish. I think it gives the left exactly what they want. I have really appreciated J.D. Vance's response. Now, I think the vice president has struck exactly the right chord on this because he's not going to play the game. And instead, what he's done is he has redirected the conversation back to the thing that the left is trying to distract us from. There's one reason and one reason only that this story exists. And it's to get us to stop talking about Jay Jones and the leftists who've been celebrating the murder of Charlie Kirk for the last month. That's the only reason that the story exists. And so J.D. Vance's point is, no, I'm not going to play that game with you. I'm not going to give you what you want. Instead, I'm going to redirect the conversation back to the thing that you're trying to distract us from. And I think that's exactly the right move. I think there's some disagreement about that, though. There's more to be said about it. But I'm going to go first to the guy who I think is most likely to agree with me, and that is Michael. Michael.
Well, you're right, Matt. I totally agree.
Yeah, because they're the Jewish ones, so they can't. I don't understand. I guess I can't really say that, but that group seems to be very easily offended. It just seems like white people is the only group that's not easily. White people and Hispanics seem to be the only group that's not easily offended. The Jays, I can't even say their name because they get offended so easily. Black people. You guys don't have any institutional power, so haha. Sorry. Haha. But and Asians, you know what? No, but the Asians will get you for cultural appropriation. Like we can't even wear kimonos anymore. I really think it's just white people and Latinos. Latinos don't care if you wear like a bachata hat or whatever those are called.
Was it the swastika on his forehead?
The only yes. Hey, listen, we're Italian, and Mussolini, he was a complex figure. My only take on this that probably has not been said elsewhere is even the fact that we're talking about the ideology of the far right and comparing the far right to the far left, and whether or not people like Hitler or whatever, is actually kind of missing the point. I strongly suspect these messages were leaked by another young Republican that has been reported. And having spent a lot of time with New York young Republicans, I promise you, this whole thing is about some like petty personal grudge, and it's some power play within New York politics, and it actually has very little to do with the ideology or putative ideology of these texts. But I totally agree. There is no comparison whatsoever between some 19-year-old kid who's making edgy jokes trying to outbaste his friend in a group chat and a former state legislator, would-be top law enforcement official in Virginia, saying, as you note, Matt, that he is not joking when he calls for the death of his opponents and even the death of their children. So, yes, not at all. Now, the question then becomes, should we ever police our own? Should we ever have guardrails, or do we say anyone, to the right of Hillary is on our side? And I think the answer is obviously yes, there have to be guardrails. Just like a nation is circumscribed by its border, so too a political coalition is circumscribed. That's what delineates it as a specific coalition. But the question is, how are we going to arrive at those guardrails? Are we going to say that anyone who ever, gets caught telling an off-color joke by Politico, they're completely cast into the outer darkness? No, I don't think that's right. I think we should have guardrails. We should police a coalition. And the way we should do it is very carefully. This was Scalia's answer when, as a student, we asked him, hey, where do you draw the limits on the Second Amendment? Where do you draw the limits on stare decisis? And everyone wanted a really ideological answer. And his answer was very carefully. We kind of know, we're prudent, it's a people business. And should these kids have their lives ruined because they were mouthing off and telling jokes in a group chat? No, I don't think so. I think we need...
Brett Cooper is just a clone version of Ben Shapiro. Changed my mind. It's true.
But we're not prudent.
And she still crashed out. It's like the ungratefulness of women. That was my final straw for Brett, was when she left and created this whole drama on her way out. She did not have to do that. What an ungrateful brat. That was my opinion on it.
So, I mean, here's the thing. We're just not. I mean, so I would agree with you that quote unquote policing, you need to be prudent about how you police. I also think that everyone agrees, I would assume, Matt included, and Matt, you told me if I'm wrong here, that there are certain things that can be said that social consequences should actually attend to. Certainly that's true on the left, right? If you say that you want to murder the Speaker of the House and then calls the kids fascist, there should be social consequences that actually attend to that. I agree with everything you say about the difference between a private group chat between a bunch of young Republican idiots who are outbasing each other, and the attorney general candidate in Virginia actually saying the thing running for office. Now, I will say, I don't think these people are kids. I don't think 31-year-old's a kid. I don't like using the sort of language of kids to describe people who really should be married and have children of their own.
Yeah, that's a virtue signal. You're not a real man unless you have kids and a family. If you cared about your family so much, why do you use them to build your reputation? Why don't you just be a good person on your own? Why do you need your family to make you a good person?
By this point in their life, and I think the kind of loose playing with that term, as though if you're a 31-year-old, which is what one of these people was, that somehow this is the equivalent of being 17. I don't think that's true either.
But the YRs go down to 22. I mean,
I agree, but some of the people who are being quoted here are in their 30s, some are up all the way up to 40. I get it. Again, I'm not even disagreeing with the motivations of the Politico story. In fact, even on my show today, I talked about the motivations of the Politico story, which, Matt, I agree, are completely scurrilous and designed to distract from the sort of violent rhetoric we've seen from the left. But it has led to, I think, a reactionary response on some parts of the right to say there should be no policing ever at all. No social consequences should ever attend to things that are said on the right, that it's basically just pure my side versus your side. The problem I have is, number one, I think that's immoral, and number two, I don't think that's pragmatic. I don't think that's moral, because I think that there are things that get said on the right that are really, really, really ugly, and pretending those away doesn't make them go away. I think that they're rising. I think that they're getting more common. I know that my death threats from that side are getting more common. I know I have more security because of that, and it's not just from the left. I have lots of security from the left, and I also get lots of security from the right. Matt, I think a little bit earlier today you tweeted that kind of your litmus test is the people who are trying to kill you, and I totally get that. I also have that litmus test. The difference is that I think that if somebody tries to kill you, Matt, there's a good shot that it's going to be a leftist. If somebody tries to kill me, it's a frickin' Agatha Christie novel. I just don't know which direction the bullet is coming from at this point, given the sort of various and sundry radical extremes that exist. I'm not going to say that the right is equivalent to the left in this respect, because I don't think it's been mainstreamed to nearly the same effect on the right.
I think he's trying to say Groypers are trying to get him. I have not found the Groypers to be violent.
It has been on the left, but to pretend that it has not infiltrated a lot of very important spaces, I think is sort of whistling past the graveyard. Now, again, that's not about the Politico story. There's more of a broad commentary about where we are in the movement. And as a matter of sort of morality, we all have things where, again, I'm not saying cast into the outer darkness, right? I'm not calling for any of these people who I think everyone knows who I'm referring to, but I don't think I'm calling for any of these people to be deplatformed, removed from YouTube, or removed from Twitter. In fact, I've called for many of these people, Nick Fuentes, for example, to actually be returned to Twitter, despite the fact that we have some pretty significant disagreements, including the fact that he thinks that I and people like me are scurrilous, sons of Satan, or whatever, however he would put it. But that is a different thing from, is this person part of?
I know, but Ben, I think you're miscategorizing people's disagreement to you. They don't disagree with you or hate you because they think you're a son of Satan or whatever. I'm sure there's some of that, but people feel as though Ben is loyal to Israel and not loyal to the United States. That he wants Israel's best interest and not the United States' best interest. I would say that's people's main problem with Ben. I just think he's miscategorizing,
quote unquote, the movement that I belong to. And the answer there is he doesn't think I'm part of the movement that he belongs to, which he's made very clear. And so that gets into the question of there's the morality of when someone says something bad, should you condemn it? And I think that as a general matter, you can do what Winsome Sears did, right? Winsome Sears is running against the attorney general candidate in Virginia. She was asked about the Politico chat. She says, yeah, that's bad. Now you do Jay Jones, which seems to me like a pretty good answer and a good way of policing. Well, and then when it comes to the pragmatic,
can I say
just you were in the group chat.
Yeah. I mean, Drew, sorry, one more point on I just want to make one more point here, and then you can say whatever you want. On the pragmatic side, I fundamentally disagree with this idea that the reason that the right, quote unquote, loses is because we fragment while the left is unified. The left is losing because it unified around its crazies. Do not unify around your crazies. Sure, the crazies can vote for you. They can vote for your party. You can't stop them from doing that. It's a free country. But that doesn't mean they should have like a decisive.
I think that people should think for themselves. I am really not in the camp of everyone going into this group and having this movement and I just think it's unrealistic. I think people have to think for themselves. When you join a group, the challenge you get is that then you have to adopt the opinions of that group. And then if you infight too much, it's, oh, well, you're not going along with the group. Well, I don't know. When has it ever been a good thing to go along with the group? I think you should think for yourself.
Voice in the future of the movement, because if you do that, you end up with the trans movement running the Democratic Party, and you lose from here to forever. It's the Democratic solidarity that's destroying them, not the Democrats as a sort of fragmentary party.
Hang on, let me we'll go to Drew just a second. I just want to respond to two things there, and the first is, and I've heard this argument that, well, the left is losing because they failed to drive out the radical elements of their party. I think there's a false premise there, though. I don't think that's actually happening. I think Mamdani, one of the most radical political figures we've ever seen in this country, is about to be the mayor of our largest city.
Because there are no Republicans or moderates in New York, Matt. I mean, Trump's been president twice, and it was the trans issue that killed Kamala Harris in the last election because they won't stop doing the trans issue, which is the most extreme.
Okay, I'm curious. So, what are the major cities in America? If we're going to say, are the Republicans winning, what are the 5 biggest cities in America? Okay, LA, Democrat, New York, Democrat, Chicago, Democrat, Houston, and Phoenix. I don't know if those are. Houston has a Democrat or Republican mayor. I didn't know Phoenix was that big, actually. I did not know that was that big. Democrat has Houston. Phoenix is Democrat. Yeah. Literally 5 Democrats. This is what I mean when thinking for ourselves.
Extreme elements of the party, including obviously, what happened to Charlie.
Yeah. And the trans issue was a big problem for it. But that's another thing too, is that when we talk about the sort of the quote unquote radical elements of the right versus the radical elements of the left, these are not exactly the same thing. The radical element of the left denies basic biological reality. I mean, you're militating against these basic realities that we all understand, and that's not happening on the right. There's no equivalent of that, of someone saying that men can have babies. Like there's no exact equivalent of that. But the second point on the Politico.
Oh, Ben does not like this. What do the comments say? Ben's giving Matt the same look he gave Charlie. Left the group chat. Get back to work, Matt. Why does Walsh look like he was kidnapped? No.
Article itself, okay? Obviously, if somebody says something publicly and they've decided to announce it to the world, well, then that's fair game for anyone to disagree and anyone to say anything they want about it. But with that in particular, I think that in almost every case, if you are speaking in private, you're having a private conversation, and then somebody with obviously sinister intentions comes along and takes that private conversation and makes it public. In almost every case, my position is, and this has always been my position, I don't care. I'm not even paying attention to it. Okay, I am not going to dignify that. I'm not going to go along with it. I'm not going to give you what you want. I'm not going to reward.
Yeah, I agree with Matt there. I think that's actually a really good take. You're never going to know the context. You're never going to know the relationship the people had. Yeah, so when you leak private text, you just got to be careful.
Reward that strategy. And by the way, part of that's a principled stand on my part. It's also, it's like a self-preservation thing. I don't want people doing that to me. I don't want people going through and revealing my private conversations, not because I'm saying those kinds of things, but because these are private conversations. Now, there are exceptions to that. One exception is if you're running for political office and you want to be the top law enforcement official in a state, and you've said privately that you think that, half of your state should die. Well, that's one of those exceptions. I think probably in general, if you're running for political office, that's an exception. There are things that become fair game that otherwise wouldn't be. But outside of those exceptions, I just fundamentally disagree with the idea that we should give these people anything that they want, or that we need to start now condemning things that were said in private in conversations that had nothing to do with us. We weren't involved. We don't have the context. They were not intended for any of us to even see in the first place. And should we police that?
So I would say no. I want to say this. First, I agree with everything that Matt is saying in its context, in the context that we're talking about. I don't see why I should care about these people on a private chat. I don't think private chats should be revealed. And when the New York Times is spewing out perversion and racism at a level that is far, far beyond anything these people are saying, and incitements to violence, I don't see why a private chat compares to the New York Times and the crap that they turn out every day. I also agree with Ben that nobody should be censored. I don't want to censor absolutely anybody. However, let me say this. When J.D. Vance comes out and he condemns these people, and J.D. Vance is one of my favorite people in the administration. He was my choice for vice president before Trump picked him. I think he's doing a spectacular job. He would have a lot more authority if he would stop hanging out with Tucker Carlson.
I guess it depends on what you.
I hate that. Where if you associate with somebody that has a difference of opinion, now you're held responsible for their opinions.
Mean by that exactly, because if you disagree with things that Tucker Carlson says, then no one is saying that you can't disagree with them. You can't make your disagreement known. You can't debate them, whatever. Like, of course you can do that. I don't agree with everything that Tucker says. I don't agree with everything that anyone on the right says.
It's a different category, though. It's a different category. I mean, yeah, you and I disagree. Ben and I disagree. We're all talking about the same world that's actually happening. You know, to say that Hamas.
Well, I think, I guess I think Tucker is talking about the same world. I think
really?
I think he's got different views on the world than you do. But if we're talking about standing up and saying, I disagree with that strenuously, here's why. Well, then, yeah, absolutely. If we're talking about, I know you said you're not supporting censorship, but if we're talking about sort of driving somebody out of the movement, alienating them, saying, that disowning them, that sort of thing, I absolutely, totally, very much disagree with that.
Matt, you might disagree on that.
Oh, because that backs up what Nick said. So if you guys don't know, Ben's like arch nemesis or whatever, this guy that's been trying to debate him for like a decade, they have a difference of opinion on geopolitical issues. Ben's pro-Israel, Nick's anti-Israel funding. I'm summarizing. I don't follow this stuff that closely. So now having Matt say that he disagrees with ostracizing someone for having a difference in opinion, it's going to make Ben mad because Ben's done that to this guy Nick for like a decade. And it's been crazy because Ben's just avoiding him and he's just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And at some point, Ben's going to have to face him, I think, if he wants to continue his political career. So it's kind of a blow.
The Holocaust as a mercy killing is the same as saying a man can become a woman. It's just as crazy.
Well, hold on. Let's take Tucker off the table there for a second, because obviously Tucker is a very fraught topic for a lot of people, myself included. But I think that, I guess the question for Matt is, there are certain people who you would basically say don't belong in the movement. And so the question, I think, for everybody, and I think this is one that we should openly discuss. I mean, if we're going to have these discussions, is who doesn't? Right? Like, who doesn't?
I'll give you a takeaway on this that is obviously timely. When Charlie was killed, the guy did like 10 jobs. I mean, it takes innumerable people to fill all the things he did. The most valuable thing he did from a political coalition standpoint is he kept the coalition together, and his events were the events to go to, and his platform.
I don't know. I wish I was more knowledgeable on this subject, but I'm just thinking out loud here. Did the events really help that much? Like, and who votes? I guess maybe it gets you in a more engaged base. Pearl blows my mind. She's the first woman I've ever heard explain how a man thinks. What is it? The next step? Look, I learned it from my father. And the other thing too is I also learned, sorry, this is going back to my original topic. You got to disagree as much as possible. And as women, we never want to disagree and we never want conflict. But I actually think you should. Part of growing up is learning how to have difficult conversations. And in my early 20s, I would avoid this. It's very interesting because publicly, I would be very okay with having these conversations. But privately, it was still very difficult for me to confront people or, I think it's something a lot of women do where we get angry about things, but we don't discuss it with the person or whatever, whatever. And I've actually found that the more you talk about a disagreement, other than in relationships, don't do that, but because that's a different category, but then at least you get through it, right? And then you can look back and say, I made a mistake in how I handled that, and I should have did it this way. But then at least you learn. And when I've ever been, stunted in a category, it's always been based in like fear, where I'm afraid to make the mistake. But the people that get the furthest, in my opinion, they make mistakes and they learn, and then they figure out how to better do it in the future. I think this is applicable when it comes to love. You can't be afraid as a woman to go on dates. You can't be afraid to move in with somebody. You can't be afraid to get married. It's better to do it and fail than to not do it at all. And that's how I feel about life. And I think everything in my life that's been delayed, it was always very fear-based. Afraid the guy won't call you back if you hook up with him. Afraid to have a hard conversation with someone because what if you lose the relationship? Afraid to confront somebody about something negative they did to you. These are all things I really struggled with. And I found 2 strategies that just help. What is the next step in this? Is 1, and it's not something that comes natural to me. It's something I had to learn. And 2, identifying what you're actually upset about as a woman, but that can be difficult at times. And 3, not to shy away from the disagreement or whatever, because at least if you have the disagreement, you can look back and you can figure out how to do it better in the future. But it's better than letting it bubble or whatever. Or maybe you have the disagreement and you realize you're crazy and you need to stop talking. But at least my point is, at least you made the mistake. At least you went for it, At least if you go and you give it all you got trying to be with the guy you like, at least you went for it. Do you know what I mean? It's like at least going for a guy, like trying to get married and have children or trying to date the guy that you like is better than going back and thinking what if and ending up with these super simps. I did debate Michael. Yeah, I did debate him. Someone else asked. If you want to support me, by the way, go to theaudacitynetwork.com. I just got a $5,000 bill for a lawsuit today because some woman is mad. $5,000 I got a bill for today. It's like I'm trying to rebuild everything that these women ruined my life. And they're like, let me just ruin it further. It's the dumbest lawsuit ever. Do you know what's so crazy? I could win this lawsuit. I think I'm going to win. And I'm still going to lose because I'm going to be out like $10,000. Isn't that crazy? Isn't that insane? It's just, anyways, if you want to donate $10 a month to help me fight these lawsuits, please. Or go to the GoFundMe and donate to the divorce documentary. That's why I get so tired.
Platform was really setting the agenda for the Republican Party. And Charlie made a really important point to have a coalition in which he would not be pressured to get rid of Tucker, but he also wouldn't be pressured to get rid of people who hated Tucker or who Tucker hated or whoever, where the various constituencies hated them. But Charlie, furthermore, to your point, Ben, also drew a line. There were plenty of people that were not permitted into TPUSA events. And so he did this in, I think, an obviously very effective way, a way that did not fall into the perils of,
countersue for expenses and damages. I don't have the time. Let me, with all the stuff I have going on, let me countersue. Just ignore the suit. Yeah, right.
A movement becoming too extreme. And I just wonder if there's not a lesson that we could take from that.
I think here's a good rule of thumb about Charlie, by the way. How about this? How about you probably don't belong in a leadership position, shall we say, in the conservative movement if you won't just buy into the basic factual idea that Charlie Kirk was murdered by a gay man who was a trans furry lover. How about that? If you spend your days fulminating about all the other things with regard to Charlie and speculate that he was murdered by other forces, that seems to me not connected with reality. I mean, that's something
he hates. So if you guys don't know the beef, Ben made the mistake of hiring women and both of the women decided to crash out on him and be completely ungrateful for his opportunity that he gave him. Brett pretends she didn't do that, but I saw it, Brett. You think I'll forget? I'll never forget. I'm a woman. But Candace now is pushing all this Jay stuff, and she completely crashed out on Ben, damaged his reputation. Yeah. I like Ben as a person. I think he's a good person, but I would argue he probably does side more with Israel, but yeah, that's what I would say.
That Erica's said, that's something TPUSA has said. Like that seems like a pretty good, easy rule of thumb. That if you're spending all your days doing that, if you even tangentially are doing that, seems if you're trying to divide them, Matt, I thought that what you said when Charlie died was right. That one of Charlie's goals was to keep the movement together. It's obviously something JD is trying to do. He's trying to keep people in the room together. I totally get it. I've talked publicly about the fact that Tucker called me that day, 2 days after Charlie was shot, and said, like, let's stop fighting. And I said, you know what? That sounds great to me. That's fine. I really don't want to be fighting with you because obviously we have other priorities. In fact, I even offered Tucker that we should get on stage together and talk about the things that we agreed with. He's yet to take me up on that offer. But the bottom line here is that, when it comes to where you set limits at some point are going to have to be set. And it seems to me that the move.
But Candace was fired from her job. Well, she wouldn't have had a job in the first place if it wasn't for them. Look, Candace is not even qualified to talk about the war, in my opinion. I think she just kind of repeats what Nick F says to some degree, which is fine. But look, if you're hired to do X and then you start doing Y, you can't really be mad when you get fired. That's my opinion.
Move on the right is that because we don't like the left at all, because the left is bad, there must be no limit set. And any attempt to set a limit is somehow firing inside the tent. And what this actually leads to is many of the same people who are firing inside the tent then turning around and claiming that you're violating the truce. Because I'll tell you what, it's Nick Fuentes who's attacking Donald Trump on a regular basis.
Yeah.
It is Alex Jones who's attacking Donald Trump on a regular basis. I mean, it is Tucker Carlson who's attacking Donald Trump.
Yeah, but why don't you guys just have a show and put them all together and argue? And let the best ideas win. Like, why do you got to gatekeep it? If you disagree, do a show, debate. It will get a ton of views and it'll clarify everyone's positions. Debate. It's sport, isn't it, to some degree?
On a fairly regular basis, actually.
Right.
So,
and I think that the friendly fire should stop across the board, and I've been very clear about that.
You mean the show, not just the.
I think that the show.
That's getting late.
But let me the two things. Number one, just on your point, Ben, about who killed Charlie Kirk. I've been very clear about it. This was clearly This was leftist violence, and we should stay focused on that. I think we're letting them off the hook when we try to blame anybody else other than the left. This was leftist violence for sure. Does that mean that anyone who feels differently should be drummed out of the movement? No, I don't think so. And I also think that it's like we're not even in a position to decide who should be a leader, who should have a platform, who should be getting attention in this movement. It's like that's not up to us to decide anyway.
Well, no, but it's up to a decision. It's up to us to decide.
Hang on a second. Let me just say, after Charlie died, a couple days after Charlie died, I put out a tweet where I said that I want to call a truce. I can only do it on my end. I want to call a truce. I want to extend an olive branch to everybody on my side, everybody on the right. Okay, everybody to the right of Bill Maher. I want, including him. Not that I ever had really a beef with him, but I want to extend a truce because we are dealing with a threat. We are dealing. Drew, you said it yourself. These are people like the political violence is on one side. This is on one side. There is one side that engages in political violence. There is one side that rejects the basic realities of life. There's one side that's responsible for murdering 60 million babies in this country. Okay, it's one side. And so I think that for right now, maybe we'll get back to the arguments. Maybe we'll get back to the infighting. We'll get back to that in the future, I'm sure.
You can't control men. I mean, you can only control what you do. You can't control if people are going to infight. It would be more fruitful discussion if I could really hear what they're going to do, because the way they're speaking, it's as if they have control of the whole movement. And I don't believe they do. I mean, Ben kind of has control over these four guys, but
But for right now, I think we need to be unified against this threat, especially now, especially with the midterms coming up and the presidential election right after that. The left, if they get back into control, they're going to be out for blood even more than they ever have.
I know, God, I'm going to enjoy Trump's presidency. You better go to the audacitynetwork.com, because the next Democrats in power, I'm going to have to log off forever.
And so we need to be united against that together. And that's what I said. When I said that a couple days after Charlie's death, you know the response I got? Almost every single comment I got was yes, amen, absolutely, I'm with you. Almost every single comment. I said the exact same thing like 2 days ago. And it completely flipped. Now, almost every single comment is, how could you say this? I can't unite with them. There's no way. I can't do that. And it's just, I haven't changed. What I'm saying is no different than what I said a month ago. I haven't changed. I don't think the situation has changed at all. And I don't know why everything else has flipped.
Because I think if you take that to its full extent, it's crazy. It works within a context, but surely there is some kind of human decency level that you can cross where, no, you're not on my side. I mean, I don't understand why, if you support the cat's paw of Iran, where they sit around and chant death to America, what makes you a conservative? What makes you a conservative? That you say tough sounding things? I mean, that you talk in a loud voice about the problems of the country. I don't know what makes you a conservative if you are in favor.
I don't like all these labels. I know it sounds dumb, but I don't really care what Ben decides or what these people think is conservative. It's like, why don't you just let people's actions and words speak for themselves? Let their ideas, let them say their ideas, and then if they're bad, then you can criticize it or go back and forth. Because then this is what they always try to do with red pillars. They try to group us together so they can use the worst members against us. And I don't have any control over who they label red pill. I don't even like really being labeled red pill, because I'm not really an OG red pillar, but it is what it is. I cover this content, so I can't really say that I'm not, but yeah.
Of a regime that used to have, until Trump took it away, the capacity to actually hurt us. I don't understand the anti-Americanism.
I would say you're not. I would say you're not on our side. You're not a conservative if you are not interested in conserving and preserving and defending Western civilization. And I guess the one point I'll give in your favor, Drew and Ben, is that
because then you say, like, let's say they talk about me, and I doubt they would, right? But they say Pearl's not a real conservative. And then I say, okay, well, I'm still going to make and argue point X, Y, and Z. So, you know what I mean? Like, going back and forth about who's a real conservative, who's allowed to be in our group. It's just like, it just sounds like Mean Girls high school cliques,
I do think that there are some people who claim.
What does that even mean? I don't know. Commentators say things. Preserving Western civilization. How are you doing that? You're not you're just a commentator. Do you know what I mean? I just think commentators just get these big egos where we think we're doing things, but we're just commenting. It's just comment.
Be conservatives who actually are not interested.
And that's why, do you know what, guys? And this was a lesson I had to learn. These movements, I just wouldn't waste your time. Donate, but don't expect anything to change. It's kind of how I feel about it. You're going to waste your life waiting for that tomorrow that's never going to come. And I'm telling you, you're going to waste your life. Rome did not fall in a day. There may be change, but you're going to be old. Are you going to live your whole life hoping for something that's not going to come? And, that's how the red pillars, like the actual core red pillars are. They're like, okay, this is the society to have. I'm not going to this isn't Make-A-Wish society where I can control these whores. I can't. So how do I move in the society we have today? There's not going to be a theocracy. There's not going to, and that type of thinking is just not it's just not a good way to think, because it is not going to happen. There would be a civil war before that happens. It's fun to think about. It's an interesting thought exercise, but it's the reason I tell my dad about some of these right-wing, ban this, ban that. It's why my dad said to give up on abortion. My dad said, stop arguing about abortion because it's never going to change. I hope you're doing good today. Thank you. I am.
in conserving Western civilization
That's
at
right.
all. And so if you don't want to conserve that, then like we're just not. We actually are fundamentally, because that.
Okay, so let's put it this way, Matt. What does that mean? But let's take the abortion idea. Matt would say ban abortion, right? And I'd say, well, pragmatically, that's not going to happen. However, I do think we could make an agreement at 3 months with the pro-life side or pro-choice side. We could say 3 months, we'll give you guys abortion. Let's make a deal. That's what I would say. Make a deal, and then we can never argue about it again. And that's like the mindset. Like when you have a business guy and they really want to make a deal by the end of the month, everything has to be timely. When you really want to get something changed, you do it quick. You're like, how fast can we get this done? Right now, I have a list of like things I want to get done for this channel. And every day I just look at my list and I think, how do I get this done? How can I finish this? And it's just a very different mindset than, well, we should have a theocracy and we should bring these women back in the kitchen. It's not going to happen. What can we do today? What can we do this month? And if you can't get it done this month, it will likely not happen in our lifetime. It could happen, but I'm not in the world of coulds. And I'm really trying to build a community of pragmatic people that want solutions for today. What if you told a young girl to not go on the dating apps? Are you crazy? Men aren't going to approach you nowadays. If you're 18, get on freaking Hinge. Get on Hinge, go on a date a week. That's more pragmatic.
That's the thing I'm saying we need to unite to defend is Western civilization. And
if women have the option to opt out of motherhood, then why can't the father opt out as well? I agree with you. However, this is the society we have. You cannot opt out of fatherhood. So what is the best plan in the society that we have? That's how you want to think. That's the best way to think, right? Even though that's true, right now, there's no indication the laws are going to change anytime soon. So now you have to make a strategy based on the unfair laws. Now, a lot of people come back and they say, Pearl, you're being a doomer. I'm like, well, I'm being realistic. I'm being realistic. You have to deal with the world we have. You cannot wait on politicians for the hope to live your life. You can't. Your effects on the culture are cumulative. Well, they're not measurable. And if I can't measure and show how I've affected the culture, that would be my push. How did you affect the culture other than social media posts? Has the birth rate gone up? Has marriage gone up? No, none of these things have.
So for example,
civilization that has to mean something, right?
Yes, that's right. So for example, in recently I've been talking about the Islamic takeover of Dearborn, and I've had people who I guess claim to be conservatives who are trying to tell me that actually this is a very good thing, that our country becomes Islamic. And it's like, okay, we're clearly not on the same side.
You said, Pearl, what should I do? My wife hasn't slept with me in 5 years since COVID. I've got 4 kids who all still need me. Just keep living in a sexless marriage for the next 6 years. So I'm not going to tell you what you think, but this is how I would come up with a solution or come up with a plan to figure out what you want to do. I've got 4 kids that need me. Do I just keep living in a sexless marriage for the next 4 years? I mean, plan A would be to apply dread. That would be a strategy you could use. See if that works. If that doesn't work, that means she never liked you. You could cheat, that's option 2. Yeah, see, men are so great. They come up with solutions. Hit the gym hard, improve your employment status. And I would make a list of every option you could possibly do. Go see a divorce lawyer. See if it's even possible, right? Could you win the custody battle? Can you move things out of your, into someone else's name? Again, that's how I would never give you a strategy or a plan. I've never gone through that. I can't tell you exactly what to do. But what I would do if I don't know the answer, who knows the answer? Do you know anybody in your state that's gone through a divorce and won? So again, that's how you want to think about it personally. And then as you're going through the process, because really inability to make a decision is lack of information, and you just have to figure out what information you lack. One information you're going to want is, who are the judges in your area? Are they more liberal or conservative? You know,
This you're trying to conserve Islamism, and that is not what I'm trying to conserve. So obviously, you get to a point where where it's like, yeah, like lines are drawn, and I think the line is at conserving and defending Western civilization. And anyone who's on board with that and wants to do that, I think we should work together. But if someone says, I'm not interested, I don't want your olive branch, screw you, which I have gotten that response from a lot of people, well, then that's your choice, and we gotta.
I just don't want us to make the decision.
Guys,
I don't want to make the decision on who's defending Western civilization according to
I'd just file if it was me. I'm not having sex for 6 years.
popularity. I don't think that's the right way to do it.
Yeah, don't tell her anything about the divorce until she's handed papers. Yeah. What would it take to divorce? Those are the questions you got to ask. What are your chances, you know?
This has all been very fun.
And then when you have all that information, then you can make a good decision, right?
I mean, truly, truly enjoyable. But Matt, I need you to talk to us about how you sleep at night.
Hold on, I got a better transition. Let me do the transition. I got a better one.
Sleep at night?
I got a better one. So, hey, you know, we've been talking about who it would be prudential for us to get in bed with politically. Now, Matt, would you tell us about how you get into bed? Well, that was a much better transition.
I don't know. I thought Ben's was better, to be honest.
What? I worked on that whole segment. I was working on.
You go to the Helix.
That's very kind of you, Ben.
To appreciate it.
During the deal, friends, long before Bidenflation, long harder to extirpate. But in terms of the extreme version of these ideologies, it would seem as though they are on the precipice of being eradicated from public life entirely. To help us understand this, we bring on our Gen Z correspondent and a new member of the Daily Wire family, Isabel Brown. Hello, Isabel.
Hey, gang. How's it going? I'll tell you, waiting in the wings the last few minutes was quite entertaining.
You know, it's so crazy. Women bring we are so much less professional than men. Like, all the men are like dressed up. Then you got like the hoodie. Anyways,
Isabel, I need to
you'd think they would learn from hiring these last women.
know, is your generation not gay anymore? It's like that video, like, I'm not gay anymore. Is that happening?
And if so, where are we going to get our interior designer?
Tell you people, I have been trying to warn the world that Gen Z, the kids, were all right for a very long time. Literally a year ago, a year and a half ago, I should say, was laughed off set at every TV network, every radio station, every podcast when I presented my book that it was Gen Z that was going to save America, that no one wanted to be a lame gay chick like Disney wanted us to be and South Park so beautifully predicted. The numbers, of course, needed some time to catch up, but I think
I only want one man on earth. Well, I'm sure you're totally with the guy you lost your virginity to. Did your actions match what you're saying?
Kids are going to be all right. And none of this information out of this new study shocks me. The idea of the cultural.
Yeah, it's crazy. She just had a kid too. Does she want to raise it? No, they never do. Anyways, guys, I think that's it. I just asked to react to this today. So I was like, what the hell? Might as well. I filmed a bunch of reactions for when I'm gone. So I'm not going to live show the next few days. I would love to get you guys' feedback. I am toying with the idea of doing pre-recorded content versus live. I'm a little torn because I really enjoy interacting with you guys. I love the chat, but our numbers are so much better on pre-record. It seems like we may have to go that way. So if you like the show, go to theaudacitynetwork.com and it increases our ability to rely on that. And then, you know, I'm able to do more lives. We're going to test some essay videos probably in the next 2 weeks. I might get some street interview. We're going to test a lot of content. So we would love your feedback on it. Pre-record works better for me. I like I know it's we're just going to go off of the numbers, to be honest. Maybe a mix. Yeah, I know. But anyways, feel free to put, if there's content you really like about the channel or you really don't like, please put it in the comments. We're reading all of them. We're listening. So We're working with you guys, trying to make the best content. I'm not doing the panels again. Maybe like once a month if someone else puts it on. The overhead cost is too high. I need a lot more people on the Audacity site to have that high of overhead costs. I can't do it again. That's the challenge. Anyways, guys, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. Appreciate you watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.